Tire Law.
And welcome to another edition of The End Zone along with Cameron Johnson. I am Colby Daniels, putting a bow on the Thunder's playoff hopes and dreams that were washed away in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, and now everybody in the state has to watch the San Antonio Spurs compete in the NBA Finals, and I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about the outcome. We'll get into that a little bit later, but Cameron, it's now been almost 1 week since that shocking Game 7 loss, and I was thinking about it throughout this week. There was no point in Game 7 until it was officially official that I thought the Thunder were going to lose that game. Despite how, at times they did not play as physically as San Antonio or aggressively as San Antonio, I always felt like there was going to be a moment that they turned the game around. And I think that's probably still the most shocking part is like, I can't believe they lost because I never felt like that was going to happen.
The overall sense I had going into that game was it was like, there's no way the Thunder don't win this. Like, that was just the universal vibe going on that I felt. But yeah, I mean, we've seen the Thunder come back plenty of times all season long, and in that series as well, a couple of big starts for the Spurs, and yet the Thunder would still come back, make a game of it, or win the game. So to see that that final buzzer sound and the Thunder season end was kind of crazy.
Yeah, very crazy. And now it's like that week of reflection, right? We had a lot of reflection in the exit interviews the day after Game 7 ended, which is always kind of a weird thing because it's like the game just ends, the season is now completely over, and then 12 hours later, everybody's like reflecting on like the season as a whole, which to me is always just like it's too soon to like think back about everything that's happened over the course of the season. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gave his thoughts on how he views the 2025-2026 season.
It was a failure. Like, I failed at my goal. Like, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. But through my experiences, I learned the most about myself, and I make the greatest amount of increases I have in my career when I fail at my goal and don't get what I want. And I look at this no different. Like, I didn't get where I wanted to go this season. There's a reason for that. Now I have to look at that reason and try to make sure it never happens again.
There you go, from the two-time NBA Most Valuable Player, SGA. Look, you got to appreciate that the face of the organization isn't sitting up there making excuses, blaming the officials, blaming everything else. He says it was a failure. We didn't get where we wanted to be, and we got to figure out how to change that next year.
Yeah, it's very admirable, especially too, given the amount of noise, the outside noise the Thunder fans had around them throughout the playoffs and all season long. So to just go up there and say, yeah, it was a failure, it is what it is, we'll get better next year. But especially for him, it wasn't necessarily that he had a bad playoff run. It just wasn't to the SGA levels we're used to seeing, and I'm sure that makes it even more frustrating from his standpoint. But yeah, again, just the candor of him is refreshing. Yeah,
obviously he didn't have a great Western Conference Final series. Game 7, he was just insanely great in a loss, but they didn't get it done. Winning, he always says, comes way before his individual accolades and stats. And a big reason why he didn't have that type of series is there was no A.J. Mitchell, there was no Jalen Williams. Those guys are able to take a lot of pressure off of SGA when they're on the floor, just from a defense having to be aware of their playmaking abilities. That puts a lot more on his shoulders, and despite that, he was terrific in Game 7. But he's going to be, I think, driven this offseason by that Game 7 loss, and I would expect that he's going to come back better and stronger, and all the things for SGA. And I think Thunder fans are hoping that also happens to Chet Holmgren, who not only wasn't good in the Western Conference Finals, but specifically in Game 7, had an all-time miserable performance for a guy that was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year, NBA All-Star, third-team All-NBA, 2 shot attempts, 4 points, 4 rebounds in the Game 7 loss. Here's Chet Holmgren on what went wrong.
I think part of it is being I also am gonna have to really dive into the tape to really understand the specifics of it, but just kind of from like a raw feeling, I feel like part of it was being kind of closed out heavy too, and then also kind of just being a little bit out of rhythm at times. But I feel like there were definitely opportunities to get more attempts up that I didn't in the moment, and that's an area to improve.
And Chet, like, we need Chet. Like, we need Chet Holmgren. Like, before Chet was here, we weren't who we are today. We didn't have the success we had today. Like, when he's the best version of himself, we're the best version of ourselves, and it's no secret. And yeah, we need Chet. Like, he's another guy that got all offense, defense, and all-star in 1 year at a super young age. So, like, guys like that, you need on your team.
It was a wild postseason for Chet because he was terrific in the first 2 rounds. Obviously, Thunder go 8-0 against both the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers. Didn't play to the level of expectation in this series. Was, again, way below average in Game 7. I think when you are missing the critical playmakers that they were missing, it's not just that he didn't play well in the series, it's that you need more from him.
Yeah.
But if he had just given you, I think, what he averages, it would have been just fine. They were so close to winning that series, and for Chet to shrink while you're also missing, 2 incredibly valuable pieces is very concerning. And to me, this is going to be a mental hurdle for him this offseason.
I would agree completely. I mean, Shea said it. When Chet Holmgren is on, he's on. They're a great team all around, and he's a big part of that. So it was quite the turnaround whenever that Western Conference Finals started against San Antonio, and he comes out with the game that he had against Victor Wembanyama. There's the whole rivalry there, and you think, okay, maybe like he is just caving into the hype of that, and then all of a sudden it just looked like it became Chet versus Chet, and like you said, it became a mental battle against himself, and this is going to be a really pivotal postseason, offseason for him, I think. So, and I know there's a lot of questions regarding his future, but assuming, he comes back, it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Yeah, we'll get into the questions. What's your concern level, though? Like, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely concerned. What's your concern level for him? Not too much. I think right now I'll give him some breathing room, but I think you don't have a lot of time to prove that you got better either before the warning sirens start going off. I think because he's in the organization he's in, that whatever your number is, I think it's probably lessened by the fact that he plays for the Thunder and is surrounded by the people he's surrounded by. So that is the good thing, regardless of whether you think it's panic mode or not.
Right.
Just subtract 2 from whatever you think that number is. All right, we got to take a timeout along with Cameron Johnson. I am Colby Daniels. Decisions on Chet, like you said, decisions on some of the players on this roster. We'll talk about Thunder offseason moves next on the End Zone. Along with Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels, as we start talking about this Thunder roster, offseason moves, and what this team might look like going into next year. Obviously, a chip on their shoulder is going to be a big part of, I think, the narrative with Thunder basketball, specifically aiming at the San Antonio Spurs. If you were to make a checklist of offseason, like, most important aspects of what this roster is going to look like, regardless of trades and draft and all that, to me, it's the health plan for Jalen Williams, right? I mean, all year long, he tried to give it a go, injury, comeback, injury. J-Dub's health plan this summer has to be at the top of that list. He talked about the plans for this summer.
It's a good question. I don't know if I figured it out, if I've messed it up every single time so far, if I'm being honest. But I think rest, like everything, will really help a little bit. We'll just go from there. Like I said, I've not been awarded the luxury. Like, if you look back at a lot of them, it's like I have to come back in important periods of the season. Like, I'm coming back, we're trying to hold the 1 spot, then I'm coming back and you're playing the playoffs, which is a totally different thing. And then I'm coming back for Game 6 and Game 1. So I think just having a nice cool down period where I don't have to try and rush or accelerate anything is gonna be nice to just kind of let my body completely settle and get back to zero.
People forget how good J-Dub is. He was sensational in the finals, had a 40-piece in the NBA Finals, was All-NBA a year ago, all defense. I mean, he's such a Swiss Army knife, can defend all 5 positions on the floor. Like, his versatility gives you a lot of optionality in terms of how you can play, what rotations you're going to use. Not having him, I think, makes you a lot more one-dimensional in a lot of areas. That's part of, I think, what gets missed with, I mean, minus the stats, which are big, that's part of what gets missed with his absence, and you know, you start having to fill individual lanes instead of, you know, him being able to fill multiple lanes. That's going to be a major part, and I think that also corrects a lot of the issues that we saw in this San Antonio series. Outside of that, they have massive questions about both, I think, Isaiah Hartenstein, who has a team option going into next year, Lou Dort, who has a team option going into next year, and Kenrich Williams, who has a team option going into next year. You look at the salaries here, they're going to have to cut salaries down because everybody's paychecks are going up. You would expect that some of those guys are going to be casualties. I don't know how many, or, you know, maybe there's some sort of restructure going on. But both Isaiah Hartenstein and Lou Dort discussed with us back at Exit Interviews their view on the conversations regarding coming back to this Thunder team.
We just lost yesterday, and so at the end of the day, I think it's something that will be discussed more at the end. But yeah, I mean, I love being here. I love the organization, but it's a lot of it's in their hands, and then I think them and my agent will talk. I mean, it's a business at the end of the day, but again, just whatever happens, is truly grateful.
Obviously, the conversation is going to happen. Hasn't happened yet. Obviously, we just lost last night, but you know, I've a lot of trust in this organization and Sam. You know, I'm really grateful for all the stuff that he did for me till this point, and you know, obviously, I want to stay here. You know, this organization and this city really shaped me as a person and as a player. So, you know, the conversation is going to happen. Obviously, my main goal is to, you know, stay here. This is like a home to me. So.
All right, Cameron, whether it's players getting traded or, you know, options declined or, you know, the number of different ways that ultimately this team can change, who do you expect to maybe be a casualty of, obviously, you know, the salary cap?
You know, it's tough when you look at it because you have, in one sense, there are some players like Lou Dort that you can't, I don't want to say you can't judge harshly based on like recent performances because maybe they were in a slump, but at the same time, Isaiah Hartenstein did a really good job of making a case for himself there in the final series of the season. But I do think that a guy like Lou Dort is probably, unfortunately, going to be a casualty. I see a world where iHeart ends up sticking around. I know there have already been some early swirlings about that, but yeah, there are some replaceable pieces in there, as much as you hate to say as a Thunder fan. But yeah, I think Lou Dort might. I'm a little worried for him.
I've seen so many trade machine trades on my Twitter timeline involving Chet Holmgren, whether that's for Giannis or Evan Mobley or Paolo Banchero. I mean, there's been so many different ones. You think Chet is even being in trade conversations?
That kind of goes back to what I was saying. It was like he is really good for the Thunder. He had a fantastic series in the Western Conference semifinals. Terrible in this last round, but it feels wild to even, you know, swirl that in there. But I do think there is a possibility that is more likely now than it was a couple of months ago.
Okay. I don't think there is any chance Chet Holmgren is being traded. I think Sam Presti loves the guy, and I don't think he's going to overreact to a 7-game series when, you know, Chet's had, I think, the season and the progression that he's had this year following, you know, an NBA championship. We'll see. I could be wrong.
Chance.
And he's also only 24 years old, so take that for what it's worth. All right, we got to take a timeout. Slam or pass on the other side of the break, along with Cameron Johnson. I'm Colby Daniels. You're watching The End Zone. All right, it is time for Slam or Pass. Along with Cameron Johnson, I'm Colby Daniels. I'll make a statement. If you agree with the statement, you slam. If you disagree with the statement, you are going to pass. So we're talking about Thunder offseason moves, and we were talking about Chet Holmgren before the break. Do you trade Chet? Do you hold on to him? He had a miserable Western Conference Final Series, so I'll just throw this hypothetical out to you. Would you trade Chet for Giannis if salaries matched and we weren't worried about salary cap and all that nonsense?
I know you
hypothetically.
Hypothetically, you see the name Giannis and people are like, that's a high-profile player. But I think one of the backbone of the Thunder is the team chemistry, especially with their big three. I see why you might entertain it, but I think I would go ahead and pass that one.
Wow. I
don't know.
I was for sure you were going to slam. I think you made the right decision, though. I think passing is the right decision there, and I'm a big fan of Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he's 32. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. Chet's only 24. I mean, the salary is a big reason not to make that move, but on top of it, I think there are a lot of other reasons. And to your point, I think Chet is a better fit for this Thunder team as opposed to Giannis, who would need to have the ball in his hands more. And I don't think it works well. That's a big pass for me, but I think Giannis is a tremendous player, and I'm not debating which is the better player.
Right.
But fit is a big part of why the Thunder have been so successful, to your point. All right, slam or pass. We have team options on a few veterans, Hartenstein, Dort, and Kenrich. 2 of those 3 will be back next season.
I'm going to have to pass. I think you'll only see one of those. And my gut tells me that of those 3, you'd probably see Hartenstein back.
Okay. All right. I'm going to actually slam this one, and this is just a prediction. I think they're going to decline the options on all 3 guys. I think they're going to sign Hart to a longer-term deal that's maybe backloaded where the front end can fit under the salary cap. I think they give Kenrich Williams a league minimum deal to come back and be the veteran, for those bench guys. And then unfortunately, I think that means Lou Dort signs somewhere else, and Kasem Wallace most likely slides into that 2 position in the starting lineup. All right, slam or pass. Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins will be back in OKC next year. We didn't really see either guy much off the bench.
That's a tougher one. I'm going to say slam.
Okay.
I kind of lean toward Wiggins being the one that would come back, just because, Isaiah Joe and Jared McCain kind of play similar vibes there, but I really don't know. All of this to say, I'm glad I'm not a general manager making these decisions, because I don't know. But yeah, I'll pass on that one. Or slam, excuse me.
You're going to slam. One of them's coming back. I'm going to pass. I think, unfortunately, they're both gone. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I like both of those guys. Aaron Wiggins is one of my favorites. Just great personality, great dude. I know he's had a hard year, but I hope I'm wrong. I think both those guys are cap casualties and ultimately are traded, and we'll see. Maybe that's packaged with draft picks here in a few weeks, but I don't see either one of those guys being back. All right, last one quickly. Topic and or Sorber will become a key role player next season.
I'm going to say slam.
Okay, slam for me as well. I think out of necessity. You just got to start moving these young guys along or move them to new teams. That's just the way it's got to be. All right, the closing argument next here on the End Zone. All right, it is time for the closing argument as we wrap up this edition of the End Zone along with Noble McIntyre. I am Colby Daniels. So the Thunder lose in Game 7, a heartbreaking Game 7 loss down to the final minute, and they are sitting at home while the San Antonio Spurs, the new rival, competes for an NBA championship. The big question this week is, what does the offseason look like? What changes does Sam Presti need to make? Who stays? Who goes? Who do you pursue to fix this problem so that you're back on the mountaintop next season?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of overreaction going on right now. They obviously have to make changes, but they're having to make changes because of salary cap issues, not because of personnel. Don't forget, we're 1 missed shot away in overtime from winning the series 4-1. 1 missed shot.
That's right.
So to sit here and think that we can't compete, I know everybody's upset at Chet, but this is a team sport. This isn't Chet against Wemby, it's the Thunder against the Spurs. And 1 missed shot away. We're going to have to make some changes for salary cap issues, but I think your core group stays your core group. You come back and regroup next year, and you put the pieces around it, and you go again.
Yeah. Chet did not play well.
He did
that
not.
Also doesn't mean you have to trade him immediately, right? I mean, we can all admit that he is capable of playing much better, or maybe that Wemby is in his head. I think those things are true, but he is a valuable piece of this team. You can't just move him for anybody that's going to give you the same production. You also didn't have your top 2 playmakers other than SGA on the floor. You were still that close, and then I think obviously Guys like Casey Wallace are going to inherit a bigger role. Isaiah Hartenstein and Lou Dort are really the big question marks with team options. What do you think happens there?
You know, I think Lou Dort, unfortunately, is going to be gone just because his production has dropped over time with the emergence of Casey Wallace, who's also an elite defender. I think you'll see that step up, which is tough. He's good friends with Shea. Yep. He's been a corner piece of this team. And again, it's a business issue, not necessarily a personnel, you can't do this issue. You're right, Chet didn't do well. Caruso didn't do well in the last game. I mean, nobody's talking about getting rid of him.
Yeah.
You got to make some moves because of the money, but overall, we have a great team. I love our team. If we could bring them all back again next year, I would bring them all back again next year.
I think most of the fan base would agree with that, and it's going to be a fun summer, and they're going to have a giant chip on their shoulder going into next season. For Noble McIntyre, I'm Colby Daniels. That is it for this edition of The Closing Argument. We'll see you next week.